Hello, hello, hello. Happy Friday. I'm so excited for this conversation. Today, I have Kelly Meyerson with me. She is a voice amplifier and strategic communication consultant. She combines 24 years of experience in occupational therapy and a master's in strategic communication and leadership with insights from spirituality. She is the host of the Mystic Nerd Squad podcast and an author. She empowers women to communicate authentically, helping them to create a meaningful impact while retaining harmony in their relationships and their well-being. Kelly, thank you for being here. I'm excited to have this conversation.
Thank you so much for having me, Francine, and happy Friday, everybody.
Yes. So those are really two very different things. So why don't you just share with the listeners your journey and how you got to be a mystic nerd, and what that transformation was like.
Oh my gosh, I love this question. So, I think I grew up in a time when being any kind of a nerd was frowned upon. So, it was not cool like it is today. You can throw nerd, geek on there, and people are like, yes, I resonate with that. Meanwhile, back in the 80s and early 90s, when I was growing up, it was not cool to be a nerd.
Not so
But
much, right?
yeah, so true. But I always had a pull towards things that were spiritual in nature. I always loved taking those quizzes and finding out about myself. So, no surprise that I find myself on a personal development journey. I was always into personal development, before it was like a cool thing to do. Again, I guess
Right.
I'm a trendsetter, maybe. I don't know.
There you go. Absolutely.
I think I was just always comfortable in silence and quietude by myself, exploring these other avenues. And it was only in my 30s that I started to look around and realize other people were also interested in these things. Went through my own health journey, dealing with food allergies and just chronic pain and migraines, healed all of that stuff. And at the end of that journey, or what seemed like it was coming to an end, I was like, what is next for me? Where is the pivot? I didn't really want to talk about well being all the time. Like, the well being is so that we can do all these crazy cool things. And, like your intro said, change the world, like really make a difference in people's lives. So that's kind of how I came to the Mystic Nerd Squad podcast, kind of as an offside joke, talking with one of my friends. And we're talking about, being mystic nerds and how fun it is. And I was like, if I ever had a podcast, it would be the Mystic Nerd Squad podcast, which let me tell you, is not necessarily like it's very clear it's for you or it's not. And in the
Right.
beginning, I didn't want to be that clear, like turning people off as much as I'm turning them on. But what I've realized on this journey is that the more authentic you are to your own messaging, who you are, what lights you up, what you're passionate about, the more you attract the perfect people into your world. I've had the biggest blessing of having people like yourself, Francine, on my podcast and having these conversations that I feel like if nobody else listens, but I have this catalog of amazing people I can go back and visit over time,
Right.
I will be a happy woman. But at the same time, the things that I've chosen to have conversations with people about are the things that I think are changing the world right now in real time.
I love that. I love that. Same with my podcast. I'm in season 2 and I'm like, how can I bring all these amazing people together in one place? Right. Because I really have had such fun guests, and season 2 has been great. I mean, you and I have met before, but most of the people on season 2 are people I've never come in contact with before, which is just super cool, right? And I know nothing about them, so I'm learning from them, and my listeners get to hear, their stories and learn from them as well. And yeah, it's cool to have that kind of Rolodex.
Absolutely. And I
Yeah.
think if we do anything on this journey, getting to meet people that you vibe with or aligned with, seemingly like really understand this, compelling sense of needing to make change now and to speak about what matters now. And so I've always loved a good, deep conversation. And now getting to do that on a podcast is like the perfect
Right.
situation for me.
Right. I love that. I remember what I would probably coin as the beginning of my spiritual journey, although I didn't have community. I live in Massachusetts, so I'm not far from Salem, Mass. And I went there probably in my 30s and I picked up a crystal. It was a gold pyrite. And I remember holding it in my hand and being like, what's happening to me right now? Like, it was like I had this religious experience, but I had no context and no community. And it wasn't until I was in my 40s where I found community. I was just looking for girlfriends and I found this women's group. It was called Magic Parties and it was run by coaches, but they were coaches and healers and psychics and, it was a different group of women that I had been around in my own, existence at that point. And I had always been curious, but if you don't have people to talk through, then you don't know what to do. So how did you go from being a nerd to being a mystic nerd? Because that, like, yes, you were curious, but I think it's also something you need community for.
100%.
Yeah.
I think what really solidified it for me, back in 2019, I had really connected with these super cool women on Facebook at the time, in a Facebook group. And one of the women, her name is Laura Mazzata. I actually ended up writing in one of her books. She said to me, "You need to meet this woman, Laura DeFranco. She runs this group, The Right Habit About Writing." She's like, "You're so good at writing. You're so into it." This was before I had started writing in books, but it had always been a dream of mine, and connected me with her. And so I got into her circle. I took some blog writing courses from her, and we fall into 2020, and the world just changes and
Right.
uproots. And at a time where I feel like a lot of people felt lonely and disconnected, I found this community of people all over the world who were into spiritual journeys, who had these amazing paths and stories to tell. And I could not get enough. I just wanted more and more and more of these stories. And so, as it ended up, Laura DeFranco ended up writing a book in like a crazy short amount of time, in less than a month. It was like published and out. It was, 24 different authors writing healing tools, really meant to support the world at a time when people didn't have access to the same resources that they did before. And so this book came out, and I was originally just like a super fan, like on the advanced reader team and supporting all the people doing it and trying their different practices and connecting with them. And eventually, Laura DeFranco, who, if you've never met her, is just a straightforward, straight shooting kind of woman, said to me, "Why have you not written in one of my books yet?" I was like, "Oh." I was like, "I don't know, probably because I didn't feel good enough." She's like, "That's stupid." That's kind of like what she would say. And so I said,
Right.
"Okay." So I wrote a chapter on sleep in the fourth generation of the Ultimate Guide to Self-Healing. And that then I was like hooked. And it wasn't just about writing these great chapters, being part of these collaborations, but it was really the people that I was meeting who had, sometimes these experiences halfway around the world in places I've never been, and just getting to hear all of these different experiences of life and spirituality, the differences, and then some of the similarities that just really renewed my faith in source and energy and love. And then I was like, well, now I need to just know more. And so a lot of my journey is just based on like a crazy amount of curiosity. Like, you cannot tell me enough. I want to know
Right.
everything. I want to know more.
I love that. I love that. I know sleep is an important topic for you. I was actually laid off from a company in 2019, and that's kind of what started me in a full time. They were trying to develop a pillow that was going to help with sleep apnea. And I learned so much about the importance of sleep back then because it's just one of those things. Like I used to say, if I didn't have to sleep, I would just love my life. Like to me, I always felt like crap after I slept. I don't, I sleep fairly through the night, but to me, it was a waste of time. Because I'm a night person and I'm not a morning person. So getting up in the morning, but I didn't realize the importance of sleep and sleep hygiene. And if you could give people that are listening just three things to do to change their sleep habits, what would you say the most important ones are?
I would say the first step is just awareness. In anything,
Mm,
once you're aware, an awareness of where you're at in terms of the quality of your sleep and the satisfaction that you have in your sleep. If you're waking up, you feel great, you have no problems, and you're getting less than what's typically prescribed for an adult, let's say, then carry on, and then maybe you don't need to make any changes. But if you're having some dissatisfaction in your sleep, so whether the quality isn't great, you feel like you can't fall asleep, you have difficulty staying asleep, or you just wake up feeling like you're not refreshed at all, then you may want to explore moving forward and doing something about it. I think the second step is to consider the environment that you're sleeping in. I think definitely habits are something to go for. But if we want to go for what feels like an easy shift, I think looking at your sleep environment and creating an environment that feels like a good space to sleep in. So bringing in all of your senses, you want it to be a little bit cooler, you want it to be dark, you want to minimize the interruptions by light and sound. So whether you're putting on a sound machine, you're unplugging all of those night lights that just really create the ambient light that can be what's waking you up in the middle of the night. And then consider all of those pieces. And then, of course, the comfort that you experience when you get into bed. Do you feel comfortable? Do you feel safe? Do you feel like this is a space where you could fall asleep? And the way that I like to take people through like that visualization journey is to think about a place that you've stayed, maybe a 5-star hotel or a really beautiful guest room in someone's home, where like you walk in and you just breathe out. It feels serene, it feels
mm,
sparse, it feels like a place that's a respite at the end of the day. So if you can, number two, create that for yourself so that you have that pull and interest and drive to be in that space, and really just using it for sleep, for rest, for respite, taking away some of those elements, if you can, of, unfolded baskets of laundry, a desk that's covered in bills that need to be paid,
right.
moving that to a different location in your home so that you have a place to get away from everything and feels restful. Those
So you don't just move the
unfinished.
laundry from the bed to the chair and then back to the bed in the morning and back and forth.
Oh,
No.
sure. I mean,
Yeah.
many of us do, and I have in the past, believe me. And this comes from a place of zero judgment and 100% experience in doing all of the wrong things.
Right.
So I think that environmental piece, creating environment, think about how much effort goes into the nursery for a new baby and how
Right.
much
Oh, yeah.
intention. What if
Yeah.
you were to consider that for yourself? The sights, the sounds, the smells, the
Yeah.
comfort level that you want for yourself in your bedroom. And
I
then I
love
think
that.
the third step is really identifying those habits and behaviors that are interrupting your ability to get a good night's sleep, whether it's drinking coffee too late in the day, being a busy brained person like myself, whether it's anxiety, whether it's ADHD, whether it's just you're an entrepreneur and you have so many ideas all the time coming at you. And so when it comes time to lay down at night, your brain is like, I don't want to do this. I got
Right.
way
I
too
got
much
things to think about.
to think about. So I think for people like that, having a wind down time prior to bed can be a really great way to get that buffer to
Yeah.
take your brainwave and activity from like beta, high beta activity all the way down to theta and delta, which is our restful space.
Nice.
So even going to bed, alpha is like our quiet learning state, probably the state that you and I are now. We're pretty alert and responsive to one another, but
Right.
we're not dancing around the room. That would be like beta.
Yeah.
High beta is stress defense. And think about how many of us go to bed with stress.
Sure.
And it feels like you're never going to fall asleep because you have so far to go to be in a restful state. So create that buffer, give yourself a couple hours even, and then play with it. Run the experiment for yourself. Do I need 2 hours to wind down, or is one enough? And in that wind down time, taking some time to journal, to do like just a mind dump, all the crazy great ideas you have that you're trying so desperately to hold on to, write them down.
Yeah.
Write down the list of what you're going to do the next day. Prepare for the next day. Set out your clothes, pack your lunch if you're going to work or school. Anything you can do in that quiet time that isn't a hugely inspirational, getting your mind going thing, but really just kind of being prepared. And then having whatever kind of a nighttime, bedtime hygiene routine that lights you up. If that's take a bath, take a shower, or if it's just wash your face, brush your teeth, and get into comfy pajamas, like whatever it is for you, honoring that and finding ways to savor and enjoy that.
I love that. I love that. This will make you laugh. The other day, I guess it was Sunday, last week, my husband changed our thermostat. We have a digital thermostat. And we've been wanting to change it, but I said we can't change it until the weather gets a little nicer because what if it doesn't work and it's, 12 degrees. So he went out Sunday night to a concert and I checked on the thermostat and we usually sleep with it at like 65. Um, and it was set for 62 degrees, but it was 74 degrees in my house. So I lowered it. And when I went to bed, it was now 75 degrees in my house. So I texted him. I was like, hey, not sure what happened, but when you get home, can you just check this out? Because it's like a sauna in the house. I just sleep with my windows open. He came home in the middle of the night. We woke up. We were both drenched. He had to go shut it off. And then he fixed it yesterday. But we were like, what's happened? Because I was like, the more I'm lowering it, the hotter it's getting in here. So yeah, do not sleep with 75 degrees.
No.
Yeah. I know let's switch gears a little bit. I know you talk a lot about being seen and heard and speaking, embracing authenticity. I'm curious, what do you think gets in the way of women owning their voice?
I love this question. I think there are so many things that get in the way. There's more that gets in the way than gives us a springboard to having the spotlight. I think as women, we grow up with a lot of conditioning. I'm speaking, particularly probably our experience from the United States, Northeast, right? So as women, we grow up, or I grew up, and our generation was, more important to be quiet,
Mm,
to allow others to go first, to, be seen and not heard, or not even be seen, to
yeah,
really fade into the background. And that conditioning that's so based in society and really comes from patriarchy, if we want to get like to the real true base of it.
sure.
And that there are forces at work who would like women to stay quiet.
Mm,
And I think many of us either don't feel safe to come out and talk about what matters to us or speak out against things that we think are wrong in the world. And many people are legit not safe. So I see for myself, I have a lot of felt safety because of the privilege that I exist in. And so I feel more compelled to speak out, to say things, to talk about, to invite people to use their voices because I have an easier time being seen and heard. I was born a little girl who used her voice almost 24/7, except probably when I was sleeping.
Right.
And I was writing songs, I was writing poems, I was taking my Fisher Price recorder with the microphone and the little cassette tape, and I was recording radio shows.
I love
So
it.
I was born to do what I'm doing now,
Right.
but I
Right.
had to rise out of all of those layers of the onion that were packed on top of me from growing up in the Catholic Church, from growing up in the 80s when like there was just such a huge gender divide and gender roles. And it's crazy to me that it's 2025 and women are still fighting for basic rights and equality.
My husband and I watched the Helen Reddy biography a few months ago. It was a movie. And he looked at me and like I think it went all the way up to like the 80s. And like women still didn't really have rights in the 80s. He's like, wow, nothing still hasn't changed. And I was like, because she came over from Australia like in the 60s and was like, oh, you're a cute girl. Like it was just, like that ickiness. But watching it progress from like the 60s through the 80s and seeing how little we really had now now with what's going on, right? He's like, wow, nothing has changed in 50, 60, 50 years, right? I was like, this was it was more than just watching her story. It was really watching the evolution of women's rights too, which was fascinating.
Yeah.
How would you suggest women really start reclaiming their voice? Like, what are some things? Where's a good place to start reclaiming that?
I think one thing is to find the community that supports you because it can feel
Love that.
really terrifying to do all of this on your own. I feel like I said for myself since about 2019, I've just been building this crew of people who support me from all over the world. And I feel their presence in my life, whether we're in the same space. I mean, most people
Yeah.
I've never met in person. I think of all the people that I've met online, I've met like two in person.
I just got off a call right before you and I with somebody who I met 2 years ago. She lives in Malta, right? Like
Yeah,
I'm like some of my closest friends aren't even, like I have friends all over the country, all over this country and the world, and I'm like, oh, I miss you. I want to talk to you, and
so
we'll probably
true.
never meet in person.
Probably never meet in person, but I very strongly, and I think part of this is that spirituality piece.
Yeah.
I feel the connections that we have, and I feel the moves that each of us make that make a difference for everyone else. So if you're someone who has this beautiful mission in mind and ways that are going to change the world at large or even just your home, your community, then finding the support system that is behind you. So when you go to speak, you feel less alone and less vulnerable. I also think if you're feeling vulnerable, finding someone who can help you to find that sense of safety is helpful, whether it's through doing some nervous system work or therapy work, really. I mean, so many of us are feeling so good now because we've had that foundation of doing the therapy, the psychological support and work, the personal journey, the spiritual journey, all of those pieces so that we get to a place where we feel pretty secure in
Yeah.
ourselves. So I think finding that security through those means is helpful as well.
And community as we get older, I'm gonna probably say something a little controversial, and not like super, but like I'm listening to the Let Them book, but I'm not a huge fan of the Let Them theory. I feel like there's some spiritual bypassing going on there, but I'm really trying to, right? Because yeah. So, anyways, but I am listening to a section right now on friendships, and she talks about, and I might be misquoting it, but to develop good acquaintances as adults, I'm going to throw it out there, maybe it's 70 hours. And then close friends, it's 200 hours. As children, that's easy to do, right? You see them every day in school, you have lunch with them, you play together, you walk together. In college, it's even easier because you're living together the whole bit. But as adults, It is more challenging, right? I know for myself, I'm usually the person that's reaching out going, "Hey, Kelly, want to grab lunch, want to grab dinner?" And I know that I am an extrovert. I've become a little bit less extroverted post COVID, but connections is one of my top values. So I'm always going to want to connect with others. And that isn't everybody else's top value, right? But how do you develop, right? Like maintain that community. I'm going to kind of switch gears again a little bit, right? Because it is important to have community, and yet that's not everyone, it's harder as we get older and have
Mm,
children and work and do all the things that
hmm.
pull us apart.
Yeah, I love that. I think a great first step is start talking about what you really love, what you're
Mm.
really passionate about. You know, it took a while for me to start talking. I have a full-time job to start talking about doing a podcast with my coworkers. Like almost like, oh, what are they gonna think?
And that you have this like little spiritual side, right?
I this little, but what happens is like other people want to come out and play with you. I started talking about human design at work, and I was like, did you hear about this thing called human design? And like, if you give me your birthday, I'm going to show you how to figure this
Yeah,
out. And people are like, this is legit really cool. And
right.
so when you sort of let these little pieces of you out and exist in your authentic, for me, geeking out self about these topics, you draw people to you. And those are the
Mm,
people that you want to draw to you because you legitimately have things in common versus kind of keeping it at that surface level, which, sometimes is just like what we can do, what we have the energy for. But if you can kind of be a little bit more yourself and kind of talk about those things you're interested in, you're going to find yourself attracting people who are also interested in that. And it gives you that sense of like somebody you can, dump all your new exciting information about.
yeah, I love that. When I was in corporate, a lot of my spiritual journey started while I was still leading teams. And as I became a coach and did my, Reiki, which is the gateway drug for all healers, right? Like I did my Reiki and then I did other stuff. My staff knew more about what was going on, but my bosses didn't necessarily. And I remember one day one of my employees came into me and I would do Reiki in my office, right? I would shut the blinds, give somebody had a headache, I would do some Reiki on their head. And one day one of my employees came and she's like, "So my daughter's at school and she's really not feeling good. Could you do some Reiki?" Sure. And her daughter was like, "Mom, I don't know what happened, but I was, during English, all of a sudden I felt better, right?" But what I realized was as I progressed in my journey, I couldn't stay in the closet anymore, like in the proverbial closet anymore. And my last job that I was at in 2019, I had crystals in my office. I was diffusing essential oils, right? And I was having like woo conversations with my employees more around them than like the process, right? And because I was not showing up 100% authentically because I wasn't being me, right? My bosses, it wasn't like I told them what I was doing, but I wasn't hiding it anymore.
Mm,
And I think that's important, right? Like that's
mm.
also part of authenticity, is just showing up as your full self too.
Absolutely. And I think it can feel a little scary at the beginning. And I can definitely say that from my own experience. But I've had a few people over time just like quietly pull me aside and be like, wow, I think that what you're doing is so cool. I'm interested in that too. Like, really want to get into writing. I really want to get into podcasting. I really want to share my poetry with people. And having other people who see me being visible then say, I want to be a little more visible too, makes it
Mm,
so worth the journey. So sometimes it's even looking at who stands to benefit from your voice getting a little bit louder in the world.
I love that. What, how do you think how would you explain to people how to bring spiritual practices into something like leadership or public speaking without it sounding like you're on a TED Talk?
Oh my gosh, I love that. I think it really that foundation of authenticity. I mean,
Mm,
who I am, I'm a pediatric occupational therapist. I'm a mom. I love all things spiritual. I'm a writer. There's so many facets to who I am, and just really honoring those all the time and feeling less like I need to put on a mask to show up places,
mm.
and so it's not like I'm not diffusing essential oils in my cubicle. Like you don't necessarily have to do that. I mean, I would love to, but some people don't enjoy them. I'm
I
in like
love that.
there's literally like 40 of us in like a big open space in our little cubicles. So
Right.
but it's also just, like when you're at lunch, instead of complaining about the latest change in management, like being like, hey, what'd you do this weekend? And being able to share, I went to this really cool course about like pulling cards. And I've brought my deck of cards to work on like a day we don't have kids and we have a little more free time. And I'll say, I'll do some card pulls at lunch and
I
I'll teach
love
you how to do
that.
your own.
I never
Yeah.
did that. I don't think I ever brought cards to work. I love that though. Yeah.
Yeah. Like rearranging a classroom and wanting to just shift the energy. Well, let me bring some crystals and
Crystals.
we can, play some sound bowls and just change the energy. And it just
Yeah.
like, I feel like it's very small things. It's not disrupting the status quo or doing anything to anyone. It's not really like you could take it or leave it. And I also love to buy like bulk different stones and then
Okay.
give them as cute little gifts to people, just as
Yeah.
like just a way to say, here's a little stone. I cleansed it. It sat out in the moonlight, it's ready to go, and give those to people, just as like a little way for them to feel a little more grounded and connected. Listen, my practice as an occupational therapist is heavily founded in sensory integration, which is
Right.
very much about nervous system management and being grounded. And so all of it is just like a tiny expansion outside of what I've already been doing, and just like more connected with the spirit involved. So it's not a huge departure, but I think for me, just being able to exist in the world and not feel like, ooh, can I talk about this topic or not?
Right.
With my coworkers, and obviously like I'm not like, put down your paperwork, let's talk about spirit. I don't recommend that at all,
Right. There's a
but
balance,
there's a
right? There's a
balance.
balance. Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of the work I do with my clients is most of my clients are women that have spent so much time in their head and really helping them tap into their intuition, to their heart, to their soul. And we all have it. We just don't allow ourselves the space to create it. So if
Hmm.
we could just allow ourselves the space, then I'm no different than you. You're no different than this person, that person. We all have it. It's just, you know, I work out. I'm getting back into it, but I can't, I don't look like the woman who competes, but that doesn't mean I can't. I just have to do it. I have to work out a lot more and eat, right? So we all have the capacity. It's just how much practice we do with it too. What is lighting you up most in your work right now?
I think having conversations like these, and I think a few years ago it would have been just like the excitement of having the conversations, but they're conversations now that are inspiring people to do things that are making the world a better place. And at my heart, I've always been a peace loving do gooder, back when like somebody calling you nice was an insult. Now I'm like, if somebody calls me nice, I'm like, thank you. Yes, I
Right.
really like being a nice,
Nice person.
kind person. I felt like for so long being that nice, kind person was like synonymous with being a welcome mat that people could just stomp all over. And I have been through some of those journeys of, you know, having somebody take advantage of your kindness and have it be more of the people pleasing, codependent kind of thing. But like truly doing things out of the kindness of your heart. And I'm like, love is like my base operating system. Like I just want to love on everyone. I feel like I need to warn my guests when they come on, like I'm going to gush love all over you. I hope you can handle it because
give me more.
Yes,
I'm coming back on your podcast so I can have more love gushing.
Oh, thank you. Please do. Because
yes.
I think one of my gifts is being able to see how special and gifted people are, whether it's working with the children that I work with who are multiply disabled, a lot of them have a lot of impairments and challenges in engaging with the world, or adults that I meet and get to help in getting their voice out into the world. Like it's all the human being model.
Right.
And that foundation of love and of seeing the pure potentiality of a human being and having the vision of what that looks like for the world if they fully express who they are is what motivates me and what excites me and what I'm really passionate about and what I hope can be my legacy in the world. That because I loved hard on some people, they got heard by that one person who told their friend and it changed somebody's life. If I change one person's life, then my work is done here. I feel like I've done a good job.
I love that. I always love to ask this question as one of the last questions because I can't believe the time we could continue talking forever. But what is something you live by that you want to share with our listeners?
I live by whenever you leave a space, a person, leave it better than it was when you were there. If that means picking up some paper towels off the bathroom floor and throwing them in the garbage, or wiping down some counters before you leave the room, or giving eye contact to somebody and saying, thank you so much for talking with me today. I really enjoyed being with you, and meaning it, giving that hug, that kiss to someone, whatever it is, leaving someone, something, some space better than it was before you got to it. That I think is what means the most to me in this world.
I love that. And tell our listeners where they can find you, Kelly.
Well, I'm very excited to share that I've been working with the lovely Jamie Blair on.
That's who I just got off the call with. I love that.
It's perfect. It's kismet, right? So I just recently have softly released my website, which is kellymeyerson.com. So you can find all the things. The Mystic Nerd Squad podcast is on YouTube, and also you can find it on Apple, Spotify, all the places you listen to podcasts. And my favorite place to hang out these days, besides LinkedIn, which I feel like that's like my business, like where I show up for work, is Substack. And I have a Substack. It's called Mystic Nerd Musings.
And all that will be in our show notes. All your contact info will be in the show notes.
Yeah, those are the places you can find me. I'm less involved on a lot of the other social media channels just because I've wanted to really simplify and make life a little easier for myself, yet still feel like I'm having the quality of the contact with the people I'm connected with in those spaces.
Nice. Perfect. I love that. So at the end of every call, at the beginning of the call, I pull 3 cards. Oftentimes there's some connection to our conversation. I don't look at the cards, which is kind of fun, but I have 3 cards in front of me: left, center, and right. So I'm going to have you choose a card, but I'm also going to have the listeners just tap in and just ask what message you need to hear right now.
I'm going to go with left.
Left. All right. Hello and goodbye. You'll soon see that this change will make things better. And this is from my magical unicorn deck.
Oh my gosh.
Isn't that beautiful? All right.
Love
And if you
that.
chose center, practice. The best way to be good at a skill is to practice, practice, practice until you get it right. I love that. And we're kind of talking about that, right? Like our spiritual it is a spiritual practice. And on the right, it's happy thoughts. To feel happier right now, think about a memory or something else that makes you smile.
Hmm.
Beautiful.
I love the imagery.
I know, right? All right, Kelly, thank you. This has been so much fun. I've enjoyed our conversation. Thank you so much for being here today. And for those of you listening, thank you for joining me on this journey today towards a more enlightened and fulfilling life. I hope today's episode inspired you to embrace your inner wisdom and navigate your path with a renewed sense of hope and purpose. Remember, transformation begins from within. Take a moment each day to connect with your higher self. Trust that the universe is guiding you towards your highest and best good. If you found today's episode valuable, please subscribe, leave a review, share it, do all the things. And stay connected with our community. Both mine and Kelly's contact information will be in the show notes. Um, uh, I'm just so grateful for this conversation and for Kelly. And she also has a giveaway, a freebie that she's giving that will also be in the show notes. So go check that out. Until next time, continue to shine your light, walk in peace and love. I'm Francine Terrell, and this has been F and Fridays with Francine. Kelly, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.